When business was suspended, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honorable Member for Katombola that this House do adopt the report of the Committee on Legal Affairs, Human Rights and Governance on the review of the administration and operations of the judiciary in the delivery of justice in Zambia. For the second session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th June 2023, and the Honorable Member for Wena was debating. May the Honorable Member continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a rare experience for one to start the debate with Madam Speaker, and I'm going to conclude with Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was just emphasizing the point that the entire justice delivery system needs to function like a well-oiled machine. And that includes the support system below our justices. We need to make sure that we look at the environment and the conditions in which they operate so that we do not experience some of these administrative inefficiencies that we experience sometimes. Mr. Speaker, I would like to note that having said and made the observations I've made, one notices that our judiciary system is still populated by a lot of very hardworking and capable men and women. It's for that reason that if we were to have a performance management system, the few that might be denting the good performance of our judiciary can therefore be isolated and the action taken. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, we would like to conclude that we support the report, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Lumezi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I must mention that the large outcome after tea break from your members shows how interesting this report is. Permit me, Mr. Speaker, to thank the mover of this motion and the seconder and all those members that have spoken to this important report. I'll start my submission, Mr. Speaker, with a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity." Mr. Speaker, human rights dispensation of justice is very important in any given society. Mr. Speaker, this report has come at a time when the Human Rights Commission of the United States had just condemned the diminishing levels of human rights in our country as a result of people being abducted, as a result of people being transported from one town in the night to the other. In my mind, I've got a young man from
Honorable
Eastern
Member,
Province.
let me guide. I think the terms of references that we should stick to, it's our report that has been laid on that was laid on the table. So let's stick to that, because if we bring in issues that we can not substantiate, we are not privileged to that report that came from America. What we're privileged is the report that was written. So let's stick to that report. Let's just stick to that report to avoid the curtailing each other. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, if you go to page 28 of that report, they're urging the executive to be implementing what is in that report. Mr. Speaker, when we are talking of human rights, it's not everything that will have direct evidence. It could be circumstantial, it could be conduct. Mr. Speaker, ignoring the Privileges Act is a human rights issue. And these are things that should be addressed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you read this act and what is obtained in the report, there is a misfit. Mr. Speaker, when you go on page 26 of the report, they're urging the government to be implementing these things. Mr. Speaker, the dispensation of justice, investigations will start with the police. When the police investigate, they drop the documents with NPA. Either NPA will agree to prosecute or not. And the conflict that is coming as a result of that is that most of the prosecutors initially started as policemen. So there is conflict of interest between the investigators and the prosecutors. Others, it's a complex issue, feeling that maybe because these are now prosecutors, so we are superior to the police, when these two institutions should work together. Mr. Speaker, you have a situation where the applicability of these investigations, when one member or one citizen commits a crime, the first thing they are abducted and then arrested and say we're investigating. On other citizens, they investigate first, then arrest. If not, they'll just issue a statement that this matter is under investigations. Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue saying, can you lay evidence on the table when these things are happening? It is a fact that I've got a young man from Petauke who was transported last night. I've got a young man from Lundazi who has been in cells without being taken to court. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, these are facts I'm speaking to. I'm not speaking to the law, I'm speaking to facts. And this being a house of the people, we must be factual. Here, I'm stating facts. Mr. Speaker, even the acrimony that you see in societies beyond the house is the conduct of how people are being treated. If people be treated fairly, there will be no acrimony in the societies we live and in the environment where we work from. But when the conduct shows that there is nepotism,
point of order.
there is favoritism,
Point of order.
There's a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on Standing Order 67, irrelevance or reputation. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member who is currently on the floor was warned by Mr. Speaker about the matters that he repeated a short while ago regarding allegations of abduction and certain individuals that I'm not speaking to you, that the...
Order, order, order.
Don't speak to me.
No. Honorable member for Kalulushi. No. Honorable member for Kalulushi. I am seeing here, I never saw the minister point at you. Order, let the minister continue. Let the minister continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And let's avoid debating while you are seated.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, the Speaker having guided the honorable member on the floor, and yet he continued to raise the same issues regarding alleged abductions and certain unknown individuals, youth that had been abducted and so on and so forth, contrary to the ruling of the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the question or the submission I make is that the honorable member was out of order in doing so, contrary to Section 67, which entitles the presiding officer to curtail the members' debate in respect of such conduct. Mr. Speaker, was the member in order? I thank you.
Honorable members, especially honorable member for Kalulushi, don't debate while it's seated. One of the qualities of a politician is that you have to be modest. On the contrary, if you want to seem to be very knowledgeable and the only one talking, then you contravened against the rules of this House. So, and let's stick when I guide, as much as the Honorable Minister debated this point of order, I guided, and let's stick to that. The Honorable Member for Lumezi continue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I'm extremely grateful, and the people in Lumezi are grateful. When the facts hit the right spot, that's the reaction you get, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you read Standing Orders 207E, it's clear. I was abducted. It's a fact. And I've mentioned that I'm not speaking to the law. I'm speaking to facts. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, human rights, the dispensation of the justice system, people are being arrested, are not taken to court. We don't have enough human resource to manage the judiciary. We have few judges. We have few magistrates. We have few prosecutors. The most important thing, Mr. Speaker, when you talk of human rights, the squad that is abducting citizens in this country are the same people going throughout the country.
Point of order,
Mr. Speaker. As a matter of fact,
Point of order.
I'm speaking to facts,
Point
Mr.
of
Speaker.
order.
There's a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Lumezi has brought in his issue, saying that he was abducted by the police. That's what he has said. Mr. Speaker, now that he has brought his issue into contention and alleging that he was abducted, when in actual fact, Mr. Speaker, he was arrested by the police for his conduct, purporting to have made allegations against Honorable Msokotwani and the Honorable Milupi. And the police had issued a call out on him. He ignored. And when he ignored, they decided to arrest him. Is it in order to start making allegations and imputations here of abductions? The police don't abduct, they arrest those who have been said to have committed crimes. Is it in order to mislead the House and bring his reputation in question on the floor of this House?
Order. The Honorable Member for Lumezi is out of order. Because the police is not an abduction institution. What police does, it arrests. So he was not, and let's avoid bringing ourselves into the context of debate, because we are not allowed to debate ourselves. So in an event that others start throwing mud at us, we should not question them. So let's avoid bringing ourselves into the context of debate. And let's not water down institution of governance like police that they abduct, because I don't think that's the right word to use. What I've always known is that police, in time of memorial, has always gone for people that have wronged. Yes. So you can continue.
Mr. Speaker, as I wind up my debate, I must mention that during
Order. There's a point of order by the Honorable Member of Shuangani.
Mr. Speaker, this institution has got rules and regulations. Some of these rules are codified in the standing orders. Some rules are practices that have been adopted over the years in all the, just like any other Commonwealth parliament. Mr. Speaker, when reports are tabled on the floor,
Honorable Member, state what has been breached, because now you are debating.
I'm trying to...
No, you are debating. State
I'm not
what has been
debating.
breached.
I'm not debating, Mr. Speaker. I mean, you are giving chances to others to raise points of order on my account. The standard procedure, Mr. Speaker, is that when reports are tabled, the backbenchers, both on your right and left, debate first. And then you give time to the
Order,
executive.
Honorable, you are debating. When you rise on a point of order, you have to state. May you take your seat, Honorable Member? Take your seat. You have to state what has been breached. Honorable Member, no, may you take your seat, Honorable Member. Let's operate within the rules. So one of the functions that I have to do is to regulate business in a manner that I deem fit. So you can continue with your point of order.
I was saying there are practices that are adopted, not codified in the standing orders, but we observe them. The procedure is that ministers are supposed to respond to the debate and not curtail debate by raising on points of orders. You are saying I should cite the standing order. The Honorable Minister of Home Affairs was just on the floor, didn't cite even the standing orders, but you sustained it. Now, I'm trying to be helpful to you, Mr. Speaker, that instead of honorable members of the executive responding in points of order, I've been a minister before, and I know what I'm speaking to. The honorable members should wait for their time.
Honorable member, honorable whip.
Yes, sir.
May you take your seat, sir?
I'm taking a seat, but you give me a chance to conclude.
May you take your seat? Order. Ministers, as much as they are supposed to respond to reports, they are still members of this House. In an event that a breach has been committed, they can also rise. They are entitled to that. Any member of this House is entitled to do that, except the presiding officer. So, ministers, in an event that the whip for PF has breached a rule, any minister is at liberty to cite that breach. I don't, Honorable Whip, no, I don't, may you take your seat? May the Honorable Member for Rumezi continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must mention that my younger days, I used to admire Honorable Jack Mwimba as my role model. I don't know what has gone wrong. Mr. Speaker, it is a human rights issue which we cannot ignore, that I cannot be omnipresent at once. You don't expect one human being to be in the High Court in Lusaka and in a magistrate court in Lumezi at the same time. Even if I practice witchcraft from Lumezi, it's not possible. It's imperi materia. Mr. Speaker, I used to admire a lot of Honorable Jack Mwimbu's debates during my younger days, and he motivated me to come here, by the way. Mr. Speaker, when we are dealing with human rights, we must pay particular attention to detail of how we are treating citizens. You cannot claim to be a state council and then you want to be the most provocative human being and then preach justice on one hand. On the other hand, you practice injustice. Where is the balance? When you go to the judiciary, it's like this. It should be balanced. Not one hand is like this side is like this. I think we can do better. And this report, Mr. Speaker, should bring those pending reports awaiting feedback. I support this report, Mr. Speaker, especially that I'm motivated by Honorable Jack Mwimbu. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. So we'll be alternating because the way you've indicated the independence, there's PF, there's UPND, so we'll be alternating. The Honorable Minister for Southern Province.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
for the opportunity to add my voice on the motion on the floor of the House. And let me thank the mover of the motion for ably moving the motion, presiding over a committee I had the privilege to have been chair for. Mr. Speaker, let me indicate that as I support this motion, there can be no justice without peace, without democracy, without the rule of law, which President HH has guaranteed in Zambia, and everyone and all and sundry are enjoying it. So, let me,
Honorable Minister, withdraw the word President HH and the substantive name of the head of state.
which His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Zambia, has guaranteed to all the citizens of this country. Let me proceed, Mr. Speaker, also to indicate that I think that the New Dawn administration deserve kudos, Mr. Speaker. The New Dawn administration deserve commendation, Mr. Speaker, because those who were in this House in the last 5 years would agree that committees of parliament had no funding to go out of the country. Most of the committees had trips out of the country which they failed to go and perform.
Honorable Minister, there's a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I hope you have been following the debate from the Honorable the Honorable Minister from Southern Province. Is it in order to debate your office to the extent that he is insinuating that you as Parliament was not sending them to assignments as committees, when he's one of the most traveled honorable members in this August House. But that aside, is in order to draw this institution. We don't debate ourselves as one of the rules. And that goes to the institution. When we are discussing this institution, there's a modernization committee which brings a report. It's at that point when we go into camera and discuss our issues. Is the honorable member in order to start discussing functions of this August House in a manner he's doing? I seek your serious ruling and guidance.
Order. Let's all focus on the report and let's avoid bringing the institution into the context of our debate. Thank you. May the Honorable Minister continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I was giving my statement arising from the chairperson who did indicate to this House that they traveled to Uganda. Mr. Speaker, when I was chairperson for this same committee, we never traveled out of the country. And it is a known fact, it's non-debatable.
Honorable Minister, let's avoid bringing this institution into our debates.
Thank you very much, and I'm well guided, Mr. Speaker. I was just thanking the New Dawn administration for making funds available to all the arms of government to carry out their mandates in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. Mr. Speaker, let me now quickly delve into the issue of limited or shortage of infrastructure as espoused by the chairperson of the committee. I would like to agree, Mr. Speaker, over this particular issue which has plagued our judiciary. Today, when you go to what is called the new government, the new courts complex, it is new, but it's more than maybe 20, 30 years, but we still call it the new courts complex. But when you go there, that infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, is very old. And I've been wondering, why are we in this particular shortage of infrastructure? Mr. Speaker, we must look at where we are coming from, so that we can see the possible solutions. It has been lack of prudent management of public resources by the previous administration. Here on the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker, we argued budget in, budget out to say, let us not take funds to fire tenders that are not a priority for this country. But they, PF, took money to fire tenders instead of putting money where it matters most. Mr. Speaker, we argued on the floor of this House to say, let us not take money to tear gas. Let us take money to where it matters most, the preservation of human rights.
There's a point of order. The Honorable Member for Shuangandu.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the rules of this institution. I rise on Standing Order number 65, 1A. The report rendered by your committee is very clear. Very clear. And the contents are very clear. It's the Honorable Minister who is part of the executive and now supposed to be providing solutions, because government is a going concern. He is supposed to be responding to the challenges raised in the report, other than digressing and start talking about things that he can't verify on the floor. And the budgets that he's referring to are not yet to be put on the table. Mr. Speaker, you want... Ask the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, he will tell you that he's procuring more than maybe we were procuring. But, Mr. Speaker, is the Honorable colleague in order to digress from the report, which is clear? I know that he hasn't had time to be on the floor being a provincial minister, but is in order to digress from the report and start politicking in a manner he's doing, other than focusing on providing responses as a member of the executive to the report? I think it's a serious ruling and guidance.
Honorable Member, you took time to debate your point of order. May the Minister continue.
Thank you so much for your guidance, Mr. Speaker. And I'm riding on the comments made by the mover of the motion about the shortage of infrastructure in the judiciary. And because we want a panacea solution, we must look at what brought us here: negligence, poor management of national resources when given the opportunity. That is the point. And on the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker, we have argued, including budgetary allocation to non-constitutional offices that were passed on the floor of this House using the arrogance of numbers. Instead of taking money where it matters most, infrastructure development, you allocate money to a non-constitutional office, such as the office of the First Lady. And they were passed here on the floor of this House. That is why today we are lamenting about this situation. And if we don't talk about it now, it means others are bound to do the same mischief in the future, where we are going, not in the present, because the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, is a prudent manager of economic affairs. And we don't expect such kind of reckless, expenditures as I have shown. Mr. Speaker, I also want to talk about the issue of political interference. We have seen, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the criminal justice system in Zambia, where we are, and somehow I tended to agree with my colleague, the MP for Luangwa, Emmanuel Tembo, my colleague, when he spoke about interference at the DPP's office. It's not in the present, it's in the past. Because in the past, ahead of 2021 elections, a number of 10 officers, prosecutors who sought to ask for better conditions of service were dispersed to far and remote places by the then sitting government, PF. That is the interference which the Honorable Tembo was referring to.
There's a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of order pursuant to 65, number A. Confine his or her debate to the subject under discussion. On the same matter, the Minister of Justice raised a point of order when the Honorable Fofeira indicated that there is political interference in the office of the DPP, and he was overruled out of order by Madam Speaker. The Minister, because he has been used to be in opposition for so many years, that's why he's debating like an opposition member of parliament. Is in order. Is in order. Is in order to contradict his colleague and also debate on what the Madam Speaker ruled without putting evidence on the table to show political interference in the office of the DPP. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Let me guide this House. When you rise on a point of order, you should avoid debating. The moment you debate, then my hands are tied. So the Honourable Member debated his own point of order. May the Honourable Minister continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about political interference, these are serious issues, Mr. Speaker, and there are things that may not be laid on the table, but at law, they are in public domain. One of them, Mr. Speaker, to show political interference in the criminal justice system of our country is where some people were killed. A person was killed in Kaoma, and no one was arrested until change of government. These are the issues we are talking about. In Solwezi, the top echelon of the then ruling party did warn the judges to say, judges, don't behave as if you are in Kenya. This is Zambia. You must behave as Zambia, not as Kenya. These are the issues you can't hide under the veil of points of order. You were a bad government. You were a bad government, and we must learn from you so that we don't do the wrong things you did. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Order. There's a point of order by Honourable Member Fofeira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on a very serious point of order. This one to Standing Order 65-1. Mr. Speaker, this House cannot be graced by misleading statements and lies. At no point did I ever submit to this August House regarding the past or the PF. It's the current government and the future governments of this country. I see the Honourable Minister in order to mislead this House as well as the nation and also himself by saying that statement that I was referring to the previous administration or many other administrations. I thank you.
Order. You started very well. But this issue of debating your point of order, that's where the problem is. So when you rise on a point, just state what has been breached. Then it helps me as a presiding officer. But if you debate your point of order, the picture changes. May the Honourable Member we're alternating, for Shiwangandu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the report we have is a very important one. Sit you. Where are you going, Minister? Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the chairperson of this committee for ably moving the motion to adopt the report on the floor. Mr. Speaker, the contents of government is a going concern, Mr. Speaker. There has there was a realization to introduce certain layers of the courts as guided by the Constitution. We saw the introduction of the Constitutional Court and the introduction of the Court of Appeal. Very positive developments. And of course, what would have been, what it needs now is to provide matching infrastructure. The current government, in addition to that, have assigned judges to the provincial headquarters so that our people in provinces can access justice closer to them. Again, that will come to nothing if we don't ensure that we put matching infrastructure to accommodate these adjudicators. I want to commend the Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, who ensured that what we left in place was implemented by accommodating the judiciary at his new headquarters, where there's some infrastructure. Indeed, Honorable Mr. Speaker, resources will never be enough at any given time. And I would have loved, when my colleague was talking, the Honorable Minister for Southern Province, if he would have been saying, look, where we are, in 2022 budget, this is how much we have allocated to start dealing with this challenge. 2023, this is what we are going to do. I think that's a language that we need. Apportioning blame will not provide solutions, Mr. Speaker. We are all citizens and we are part of government as the legislature. So we must make sure that when we are deliberating on these matters, we are sincere with ourselves. I have already said that we have different layers of the courts. And historically, we haven't had much done. I can give a classic example of what needs to be done. Honorable Minister of Home Affairs would share with you that even now as we speak, because the law enforcement agencies are part of the judicial system, the infrastructure they had was something that we are all aware of. The police stations, the police facilities. But we had to take an affirmative action to try and start addressing these matters. And I'm encouraging the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs to continue his efforts from where we left, so that his men and women in uniform, who are very critical in the dispensation of justice, are continuously being, because it's not easy, Mr. Speaker. Those few houses you have seen dotted around the country, the police infrastructure that is dotted around the country, because justice starts from there, as we have been told. How are people taken care of when they are still under police detention before their dockets are processed to go to the court? So it's a chain, Mr. Speaker, it's a cycle. And so, Honorable Minister of Justice, see what was done at the Ministry of War, because it's not easy. You won't here come any fiscal year where you are going to have enough resources that will start going to the infrastructure development under your ministry. And what you have, the temporal measurement you have seen at the Home Affairs headquarters will just be a temporal measure. And like I've said, these layers of courts which have been introduced, constitutional courts, which have to trot in between different courts, the same with the Court of Appeal, they will require permanent infrastructure. But you need to collapse the box. Speaking from experience, it won't be easy, because like I'm saying, they won't here where we appropriate monies. There will be no fiscal year where you will be given enough money to address these challenges. And speaking from experience, I know that my colleague is trying to trivialize this matter by pointing to CDF. We can build the local courts, but local courts are not what you only need. You need magistrate courts. That is the jurisdiction where you are. And so there's need, Mr. Speaker, to take a deliberate step to ensure that resources are mobilized to start gradually, bit by bit, putting this infrastructure, which won't be a simple undertaking. Look at the way we have been grappling with the correctional facilities. Over the years, since independence, it's only a few years ago that we were able to open new doors to the new correctional facilities, called correctional facilities, and not prisons, where we send people that are sentenced. It's not easy, Mr. Speaker, because it takes years. And so my advice to the Honorable Minister of Justice is to find a way, collapsing the box, and see how you can go out there and mobilize resources to start addressing these infrastructure challenges under your ministry. Yes, I know that you are trying to get infrastructure that are closer to the high courts, for example, where the immigration headquarters is. There is a building that is yet to be finished. Collaborate with the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs. Find resources. Finish that immigration headquarters, which is almost complete. Then you can discuss and renovate that building, which is near the Supreme Court, so that you can modernize it to have some courtrooms and court spaces for our judges to do their work in a conducive environment. Mr. Speaker, I thought I could add this voice and say, blame game will never put solutions on the table. What is needed is to be focused. Governments come, governments go. But at the end of the day, we have got the people of Zambia to save. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The Honorable Member for Chipiri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to give me this opportunity to debate on this very important motion. Although the motion has been diluted, before the floor of this August House. The issue, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the report is very clear. When the report is talking about infrastructure, they are not saying the previous government should come in and mend it. The report is saying, it's reporting to the new dawn government over the infrastructure. Yes, you can refer at one point, but lamentation will not take us anywhere. The ball is in your hands to fix the things that you think were broken. It's in your hands. Do not help us at all. Mr. Speaker, let me also just briefly talk about promotion and appointment of judges. In my view, Mr. Speaker, the appointment and promotion, when you read the report, is talking about to reform the process of appointment and promotion of the judges through advertising the positions than giving the powers to the president and the commission to appoint and promote. So if this is done, if we can reform as a people, as a country, we are going to see independent judiciary. Because those who are at lower level, they will be able to put in their best to say, because there is already regulation in place, they will not be inclined to any political party in order for them to be where they're supposed to be. So if it is regulated, Honorable Minister of Justice, you should look at that. I know you have already prepared your response, but you should look at that point very seriously and see how you can come up with the regulation, how you can reform that process so that we don't see, we remove this notion of political hands. Whenever these judges are being appointed, we always say no, because these people, they are appointing authority. At that time when they were appointing at the political lenses, which we want to take away of, so that there's no such, and I'm sure we're going to see independent judiciary, so that those, as I've already said, who appreciate and put in, and they will not be connected to any political powers that may be. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, let me just say that the report is fantastic, but the way we have debated it, we are not giving it a serious that it deserves. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Namwala.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add 2 or 3 sentences to this motion which is on the floor of this House today. Mr. Speaker, I will just look at 2 issues that were submitted by the mover of this motion. The first one is a plan to have an intention of making the Human Rights Commission start adjudicating issues that borders on human rights. Mr. Speaker, from ab initio, I would want to support this report. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, looking at the prevailing situation in the country now, particularly issues that borders on human rights, it's very important that a separate entity, which is already existing in the name of the Human Rights Commission, can be empowered to adjudicate matters that relate to human rights crimes. Of course, Mr. Speaker, it's a process, but indeed looking at the prevailing situation, like I said before, it's very important that we actually lessen the burden of the High Court, the Supreme Court, and other courts that are actually designated to look at issues of human rights or constitutional issues. So, Mr. Speaker, I would stand and say, indeed, I will support the proposal that colleagues have submitted or included in their report, that the Human Rights Commission ought to be actually empowered with that authority. Further, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of prudence in the manner issues or matters, cases are being adjudicated before the courts of law. There is a serious precedent, Mr. Speaker, going by what happened in 2016. There are issues that were brought or taken before the courts. To date, we don't know what is happening. One among other issues, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of the petition that was actually lodged in by the complainant by then, in 2016, the current His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema and his legal team. So I think it is from this manner the cases were adjudicated that people to ask for prudence in the manner issues are handled before the courts. And alone just that, Mr. Speaker, one would easily deduce that indeed before, without citing the obvious, that there were a lot of interferences from other organs. And this could be seen or evident from the way the issues that were submitted before these courts were adjudicated. Mr. Speaker, the issues of Nole. The Nole yesterday, the Nole last year, and now is still called Nole. So there is no difference or distinction as to why people today should take keen interest in condemning of what is happening when before it wasn't. We have a lot of examples of what happened years back. The same date where people are supposed to hear their verdict and the knowledge is passed. And that was a practice before, and I wonder why people today would want to come and say it is wrong to have the same precedence that was done 2016, 2015, and today. So I think the best way to go, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that the committee that has been entrusted to superintend over the issues of legal matters should come up with the way on how these issues should be actually handled. Also, Mr. Speaker, I know it's not a simple process. We were led as the House to ensure that what will be provided by the committee that is actually responsible to look at these issues, bring the issue here and be deliberated by the House and see whether indeed it's inevitable to go by it. In an event that, Mr. Speaker, the House will sit positive, then we expect actually that issue to be looked from the different angle, unlike trying just to condemn, because now it's them who were there but never wanted to have these issues be adjudicated in the matter or in the manner befitting. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of freedom of assembly and association, that issue that falls under human rights, we have seen now how citizens of this country are enjoying these liberties. We are enjoying at all levels, regardless of ethnicity or political affiliation. And I want to believe this is the way it was supposed to be even before. But I want to believe colleagues who are yet to come or who were there, this is a big lesson that they have to learn, that every citizen in this country ought to be treated with the respect that they deserve, and that the law that actually we serve under should be the law that should be applied evenly without actually taking positions. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe the movement of the freedom of movement as well is one of the fundamental freedoms that was easily delegated in the previous times. But I want to take that as we are actually in charge now, everyone, and when I say everyone, it's everyone, as long as he's a citizen of this country, he is allowed to actually get to end places within the territory of this country. And this is what I want to believe it's supposed to be. So going forward, with all the recommendations that the colleagues have put in their report, Mr. Speaker, I stand firm to support the motion. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The honorable member from Pika.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Oh, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, am I protected from hecklers on your right? Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by thanking you for giving me this rare opportunity to add my voice and that of the people in whose name I act. Mr. Speaker, access to justice cannot be overemphasized. And important institutions that help in the dispensary of justice need to be protected. Under the preamble of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, every citizen is granted of their freedoms and, of course, the nation of its democracy. It's not individuals that confer those rights upon us. It's the Constitution under Part 3. If anyone stands on the floor of the House and mention individuals that these are the people that have conferred rights and liberties on us, then that is so misleading, Mr. Speaker, because it is the Constitution. Even the rule of law is enshrined in the Constitution, and those in positions are supposed to enforce what the law says, Mr. Speaker. It should not be something that we should make the Zambian people think that someone is doing them a favor. But that is what must be done for the benefit of our people and those whose interest is committed to our charge. Mr. Speaker, right now, we have heard a number of pronouncements regarding detention, that people should not be detained beyond the stipulated period of 48 hours without arrest or being taken to court. But we have a number of cases to cite. A lot of them, who are even now They are still in detention beyond the stipulated period, and they have not been taken to court, even when those cases they are facing are bondable and they are also bearable. Mr. Speaker, the dispensation of justice must be seen to be acted upon. Even those institutions that are tasked with that responsibility must act so responsibly. Mr. Speaker, we have heard lamentations by victims of abductions, victims of torture. Right now, two youths one from Petauke has been picked up. After 3 days, that person is not charged. The investigations and arrest will be done after having been abducted. Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable member. I think you were there when I gave earlier guidance that the police doesn't abduct. What the police does is to arrest. So those people that are in the cells were arrested. And oftentimes, when police would arrest someone, they've got information. So let's not water down what the police does and bring in new terms that don't exist. So you can continue. Avoid that word.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. On the other hand, Mr. Speaker, we have a case in point of Kawambwa and Pambashe, whose elected leaders are facing some court cases. Mr. Speaker, there have been pronouncements by politicians that they will go for those seats even when judgment is not yet pronounced. This is a source of worry that there is a political hand influencing the cause of justice. Mr. Speaker, as I add my voice on this very important report, let me also put it on record that perhaps the independence of judiciary will only be attained when the Judicial Service Commission is allowed to recruit judges on merit. You cannot be here in Parliament asking useless questions. Yes.
Honorable member, may you take your seat? We paid without reservations. And you are a leader, be modest. You should be modest, you know. You lose nothing. And these are your friends, be candid with whatever you say. So withdraw that word and you proceed. Withdraw it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I withdraw and apologize and also request that they should not be so provocative if they are my friends and they are also leaders. Leaders are not provocative. Mr. Speaker, what I was saying is that if we are to attain the independence of the judiciary, the Judicial Service Commission must be allowed to recruit judges. Those judges will be recruited on merit. We have seen cadres being appointed as judges, and after appointment, that's when they are deleting posts on
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
There is a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order pursuant to Standing Order 65(1)A and B both, and take great exception, Mr. Speaker, to the debate by the honourable member on the floor of the House suggesting that honourable members of the bench can be referred to as cadres. It's most unparliamentary language, not based on any factual material whatsoever, especially with regard to the bench, the superior bench, and the recent appointments under the New Dawn administration. Mr. Speaker, is the honourable member in order to debate in that unfactual and unethical manner? I seek your ruling.
Just like I guided earlier, honorable members, let's avoid bringing other office bearers into the context of our debate. And it's unfounded that those that are privileged to be appointed are cadres. What I know is that for someone to be appointed as a judge should be an eminent person in the legal fraternity. They can be picked from elsewhere other than those that have practiced and their credentials meet the aspirations of the appointing authority. So let's avoid bringing people in our debate, especially judiciary is an independent arm of government. So it's worrying that lawmakers would want to reduce judiciary to that level. I think we should take exceptional in that regard. Let's know as lawmakers what we are dealing with. We wouldn't want to contravene our mind by bringing judiciary in such a disrepute way. We know what judiciary is all about. We know who judges are. As much as it's a political house, let's have limits. May the honorable member continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your guidance, though I didn't link anyone to politics. And the name cadre, as defined by Oxford Dictionary, is a small group of people specially trained for a particular purpose or profession.
So, honorable member, what you are trying to challenge what I've ruled.
No, not at all, Mr. Speaker.
That's what you are doing. Let's avoid causing unnecessary acrimony in the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the need for infrastructure also cannot be overemphasized. I will cite an example of Chinsali, which is supposed to have its own high court. There is no proper infrastructure, and the same subordinate court infrastructure is shared with the High Court. So there is need indeed to have infrastructure for the purpose of dispensing justice. Also, when it comes to local courts, of course, it has been made easier for constituencies to build local courts using the Enhanced Constituency Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I want to thank the chairperson of the committee and Madam Speaker for having facilitated for the formulation of this report. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. You didn't want to thank Mr. Speaker. Honorable member from Pongwe, we are against time, so sorry, honorable member from Bavala. After the honorable member from Pongwe, the minister will respond and the mover of the motion will wind up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to add my voice on the motion on the floor of the House. First of all, I want to thank the mover of the motion and the seconder. Mr. Speaker, justice delay is justice denied. Mr. Speaker, judiciary has been facing a lot of challenges for the past many years. I think with the coming of the New Dawn government, things have changed. I can give example. It's under the New Dawn government where people are given bonds and bills with a reasonable amount of money to be paid. Mr. Speaker, the other challenges that the judiciary is facing is lack of infrastructure. I can give an example from Pongwe. We only have one local court which is shared between magistrate and the local court. Yeah. So this has made the judiciary to delay the justice of cases in different courts. Mr. Speaker,
The other challenges is transport. For the first time in the history of this country, it's this time under the new Dan government, where we are seeing magistrates driving brand new Toyota Hiluxes. This is commendable to the new Don government, the way they are doing. The other challenges that we are facing in most of the districts is lack of Zambia correction services in most of the districts. For the case of Mpongwe, I think all the detainees are kept in Luansha, which is 65 kilometers from Mpongwe. And with the issue of transport, when there's no transport, the detainees are not taken to court. And this is delaying justice. Mr. Speaker, I want to put it on record that the new Dawn government is responding to most of the challenges the judiciary is facing, and this is commendable. Mr. Speaker, I want to propose that all members of parliament should support the budget under Minister of Justice so that the judiciary can implement the challenges and the justice is implemented. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to comment the current situation in the country. I think the serious government can't support the wrongdoers. So I think with this said, those who are found on the other side of the law should face the consequences. Correct. And no one should support such kind of doing. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, this government means well to the Zambian, and I think that the thing will improve in the judiciary, and dispensation of delivering justice will be improved in the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Two ministers will respond to this report. First, Home Affairs Minister, later on, the Justice Minister, and the mover of the motion will wind up.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion on the Committee on Legal Affairs, Human Rights, Governance, on the review of the administration and operations of the judiciary in the delivery of justice system in Zambia. Madam Speaker, I do take note. Madam Speaker, oh, sorry. Mr. Speaker, I do take note the recommendations of your committee, which we shall look at, analyze, and implement where possible. Most of the recommendations, Mr. Speaker, are very progressive. They will entail that the judicial system in the country will be enhanced if they are implemented. I also want to state, without any fear of any contradiction, Mr. Speaker, that I, on behalf of the New Dawn administration, respect the rights of individuals as enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. I shall ensure, as long as I remain Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, to ensure that the police remain professional. And I want to state that as far as I'm concerned, the police of late have been very professional in the way they are managing the affairs of the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to state, and I lay the assertions that are being made on the floor of this House and outside this House, wherein it's alleged that the police have been involved in abductions. Mr. Speaker, as you have rightly indicated, the police do not abduct citizens. They arrest anyone who is allegedly committing offenses in the Republic of Zambia. I call upon all those colleagues who are making allegations that the police have been abducting them to report the matters to the police, or alternatively to the Police Complaints Commission. They also have a right to apply before the Constitutional Court pertaining to their rights if their grievances are genuine. We, as the New Dawn administration, we shall respect their rights if they invoke those rights. But it is not correct to continuously make assertions that the police have been abducting citizens. It's not correct. It is our responsibility as leaders to support law enforcement agencies in this country. And I support the statement that was made by the honorable member for Pika Central, where he indicated that we should ensure that the rule of law is observed in this country. One of the tenets of the rule of law is to ensure that those who have broken the law answer to those abrogations. And that is what the Zambia police and other security agencies are doing. Mr. Speaker, there was also an assertion that this government has been abrogating the law pertaining to the appointment of judges. Mr. Speaker, for the sake of those who are not in this House, I want to state that we warned our colleagues that the law which you are amending with impunity will catch up with you. Mr. Speaker, there was a very comprehensive and progressive constitutional proposal that was presented before this House. Our colleagues, the PF then, in 2015, due to arrogance of numbers, they decided to amend all those progressive provisions. And that's on, at the time when we were in the opposition, we are defeated. We had wanted a committee to make recommendation to the judiciary for the appointments of judges. We had wanted the positions of judges to be advertised. They refused. They voted against us. They voted against the law which was here, which was being debated. That's what happened, Mr. Speaker. I know that now we are crying, but it's a lesson that in future when we are passing laws, we should not be looking at our positions and our interests at the time. We should be looking at the interests of the nation. What has happened now, what happened that time is catching up with us here.
Order. We should read our standing orders. No, our standing orders don't allow that. When the minister, no, let's read our standing orders very well. When the minister, take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, you cannot make progress if you don't refer to the past. I'm referring to what happened on the floor of this House. We voted for and against the Constitution throughout the night. And we were voting on each article here. We were being defeated. And what is obtaining in the current Constitution was a result of arrogance of numbers by the PF then. Why should you now start complaining arising from the laws which you passed with impunity because you had the numbers. Mr. Speaker, I also want to state, Mr. Speaker, that this government, your government, respects the rights of individuals. And we shall continue respecting the rights as enshrined in the Constitution and in the laws. And I would like to encourage anyone who feels aggrieved to go to court, other than making statements that are divisive, statements that are not in the interest of this nation. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware of the difficulties the police and the correctional service are facing. As my colleague, Honorable Kamchongo, indicated, we are making steady progress to ensure that we comply with the laws that are currently obtained. But there are difficulties due to financial constraints. I hope that when we consider the next budget, all of us will seriously look at the budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Justice and to other security wings that are involved in the delivery of justice in this country. Further and lastly, Mr. Speaker, it is also important when we are making assertions to look at what happened in the immediate past. Even statements were made on the floor of this House that detentions are justifiable even for longer periods than 48 hours. We don't agree. We don't agree. But that's what was stated on the floor of this House. Ourselves, we are going to ensure that members of the public, if they offend the law, are brought to court within 48 hours. Unless there are certain situations. Like in a situation where somebody says, don't take me to court, don't charge me until my lawyer is available. With that transpiring, the period will exceed 48 hours. But I want to state that we endeavor to ensure that everyone is brought to court within 48 hours. I'm aware of the two Petauke individuals who are being charged with gassing, the gassing which terrorized the people of this country.
Order. The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm being urged to continue from where the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs left off. I'll return to the issues of persons who are in conflict with the law, facing the law, Mr. Speaker, such as the allegations of terrorism and so on and so forth. But before I do so, Mr. Speaker, allow me to once again commend the work of the Committee on Legal Affairs, Human Rights and Governance for the work done during the second session of the 13th National Assembly. As noted by the committee, in the first part of the report, Article 119, Sub-Article 1 of the Constitution of Zambia vests judicial authority and performance of judicial functions in the courts, and the courts are mandated to perform those functions in accordance with the Constitution and other written laws. Furthermore, the committee rightly notes that the judiciary is not subject to the control or direction of any authority and is conferred with both functional and financial independence in order to effectively and efficiently dispense justice. Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate that the administration of justice, which is carried out by the judiciary, is largely dependent on the adequacy of the relevant provisions of the law. To that end, I am elated that the committee observed that the legal and policy framework governing the administration and operations of the judiciary is generally adequate. Despite the above stated position, I do realize that there were some observations made by the committee that some laws needed to be amended to enhance the legal framework relating to the administration of justice. Therefore, on behalf of government, the observations and recommendations on the legal framework are duly noted. Mr. Speaker, may I equally state that we have duly taken note of the committee's observations and recommendations arising from Part 2 of the report, which among others are as follows. A, the need to expeditiously promulgate the rules and procedures for the Family and Children's Court, as well as the Economic and Financial Crimes Court. B, that the constitutional amendments that will be carried out should include changes to the structure and hierarchy of the courts by either allowing the Chief Justice to be an ex-official member of the Constitutional Court or to make matters determined by the Constitutional Court to be appellable to the Supreme Court in order to allow the Chief Justice to perform the supervisory role as head of the judiciary and enhance the quality of judgments from the Constitutional Court. C, the need to increase the jurisdiction of the Small Claims Court. D, the need to fund the infrastructural development programs that the government has undertaken to embark on, and I'll be returning to that very shortly, Mr. Speaker. E, the need to provide more financial resources in order to employ additional judges, judicial officers, and support staff in the judiciary. F, the need to improve the conditions of service of magistrates. G, the need to put up a case management system software which will in turn improve judicial accountability. And last but not the least, H, that the government should take a holistic approach in addressing the challenges that affect the justice delivery system by enhancing the capacity of critical stakeholders of the judiciary, such as the police, Zambia Correctional Services, National Prosecution Authority, and the Legal Aid Board. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Justice, in consultation with the judiciary and other relevant stakeholders, has already begun looking into some of the observations and recommendations, such as the need to promulgate the relevant rules of court and indeed the need to undertake holistic judicial reforms. May I state that the government, with the support of the World Bank, undertook a public expenditure and institutional review of the Zambia judicial sector to support a problem-driven and evidence-based inquiry into the challenges associated with the judicial system. The report was recently launched. May I hasten to mention that an action-taken report on the committee's observations and recommendations on the second part of the report will also be subsequently tabled before this August House. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the government, may I reiterate that the new dawn administration of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, the Commander-in-Chief, is fully committed to the ideals of separation of powers of the three arms of government and will always respect and support the independence of the judiciary as espoused in the Constitution. Therefore, the government will take the committee's observations and recommendations seriously and will endeavor to ensure that the requisite legal framework and environment is created and sustained for the effective and efficient dispensation of justice. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I'll turn specifically to address some of the concerns stated in the report and which have been echoed on the floor of this House this afternoon with regard in particular to the infrastructural challenges the judiciary is facing. Mr. Speaker, your report at page 7 makes the following observation in respect of the superior courts, in particular the Supreme Court building at Lusaka, which was constructed in 1957 and has not undergone any major renovations since. At page 8, the more modern, recently constructed subordinate court was built in 2006. Again, no maintenance has been seen of that particular infrastructure from that time. No serious maintenance, maybe I may put it that way. Mr. Speaker, this speaks volumes to where we find ourselves as a country. Because quite clearly, the problem of infrastructural challenges that are being faced by the judiciary is a historic problem. As per the report's submissions itself at pages 7 and 8 that I have quoted above. What am I saying, Mr. Speaker? Previous administrations have not paid any heed to the challenges that the judiciary has been facing. 2006 to date, the subordinate courts have not seen any serious maintenance. The question, therefore, is what is the New Dawn government doing to address these historical challenges left by others? Happily, Mr. Speaker, I can say that the New Dawn administration has risen to the challenge, as will be noticed from the past two budgets that have been passed since the New Dawn administration took over the affairs of this country, each of which has had significant and specific allocations for infrastructural development. Mr. Speaker, the New Dawn administration is walking the talk, despite having faced some serious historical challenges in the manner in which affairs of the judiciary were not prioritized, as it were. Mr. Speaker, there was a lot of mention of the fact that some of the superior courts are occupied in the building belonging to the Ministry of Home Affairs. I would like to mention, for the benefit of the people of Zambia, and indeed members of this honorable House who may have raised that concern, that again, in walking the talk, the New Dawn administration, despite the fact that the Constitutional Court, for example, was created in the 2016 Constitution, is the one that is now putting in place the necessary infrastructure for that superior court. A building and, or two actually have been secured by the New Dawn administration in order to house that court, which was created without there being any thought of putting infrastructure in place for that very superior court. And as such, Mr. Speaker, that lends credence to the argument that there was a lack of prioritization. But that is now being addressed with the responsible approach that the New Dawn government has taken to governance matters in general and to the matters relating to our judiciary, whose efficiency is a direct function of the infrastructure that it has in place to enable it execute its functions. In short, Mr. Speaker, we, as the Ministry of Justice, support the report and have taken due note of the various matters that have been raised in there. And as a responsible government, as the New Dawn administration, we have allocated resources to addressing those concerns, and we will continue to do so in subsequent budgets so as to make sure that justice is served to the people of Zambia as a whole. Mr. Speaker, I've run out of time and so could not continue the address, the debate by my honorable colleague. Just suffice to mention that those that infringe the laws of this country will face a very fair and just system, including incarceration where appropriate. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
May the honorable member for Katombola wind up debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity for me to wind up debate on behalf of our committee. Mr. Speaker, allow me to pay growing tribute to all the honorable members that have debated on this particular report, particularly my vice chairperson and member of parliament for Chawama, and all other honorable members, too numerous to list one by one, including the honorable ministers. Mr. Speaker, we are indebted as a committee for the opportunity given to us to submit this report. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, we are indebted to the support the honorable members have given this report, Mr. Speaker. A number of issues have come out, Mr. Speaker, and we leave it to the executive. We thank you for the opportunity once more, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the honorable members of the House.
I put the question, and the question is that the House do adopt a report of the Committee on Legal Affairs, Human Rights and Governance on the review of the administration and operation of the judiciary in the delivery justice in Zambia. For the second session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th June 2023. As many of that opinion say aye, of the contrary say no. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. The clerk will now read the order of the day.
Report of the Committee on Health, Community Development and Social Services. Motion of 20th June. Resumption of debate.
When business was interrupted yesterday, Wednesday, 21st June 2023, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honorable Member for Lukulu East that the House do adopt a report of the Committee on Health, Community Development and Social Services on the review of operations in Zambia, the Flying Doctors Services and the Social Cash Transfer Program for the second session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, June 23, and the Honorable Member for Lukulu East was winding up debate. May the Honorable Member continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, when business was suspended, I had just begun to wind up. And in so doing, I would like to thank all the honorable members who debated, in particular on the social cash transfer and also on the Zambia Flying Doctor Service. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge all the honorable members to support the efforts and the works of the Zambia Flying Doctor Service, because this is a service that can save a life. For example, if my colleague here, the honorable member for Dundumwezi, whilst on a campaign deep down in the hinterland, develops testicular torsion or indeed the strangulated inguinal hernia, he may just require the services, he may just require the...
Order. I put the question. The question is the House do... oh, you haven't finished? Honorable Member for Dudumwezi, what is the problem?
Mr. Speaker, the doctor has given an example on me of a disease that I don't understand. And my point of order is coming from Standing Orders number 221. Is it in order to give me as an example of a disease that I don't understand? I don't know the language that he has used. Is it in order not to translate what he means on me, Mr. Speaker? I need your seriously. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Lukulu East is out of order. For involving one of his own members on the floor of the House, we should avoid doing that. I know you are joking at traditional cousins, but let's avoid that. I think the Honorable Member for Dudumwezi is a bit agitated about hernia. May the Honorable Member for Lukulu East continue.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague insists I should translate what testicular torsion is. If you allow me, sir, I can do that. Yes, yes. Yeah. So testicular torsion, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, so testicular torsion is a very painful condition where the testicle twists and sir, yeah. So it's extremely very painful. It's actually a medical emergency. Without immediate intervention, you can actually lose your testicle. So I was very concerned about my colleague here. So, sir, that is why we need the Zambia Flying Doctor Service, sir. Thank you very much for all the members. Thank you.
That is a very strange disease. I put the question. The question is that this House do adopt a report of the Committee on Health, Community Development and Social services, on the review of the operations of the Flying Doctors Services and Social Cash Transfer Program for the second session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 13th June 2023. As many of that opinion say aye, of the contrary say no. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Acting Leader of the Government Business Adjournment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is that the House do now adjourn. Any debate? Any objection? The question is agreed to. The House is now adjourned.
Business has been concluded for today, Thursday, 22nd June 2023. Time now to have a recap of business that has been transacted on the floor of the House, starting at 14:30 hours. Madam Speaker did make an announcement stating that she has observed that some members deliberately come late for sittings of the House, both at the start of each sitting and following a health break. The situation has affected the quorum of the House and thereby slowing down the amount of business to transact each day. And she has also observed that some members have developed a tendency of leaving the House as soon as they log in their credentials into the electronic system. In accordance with Standing Order 2042A, which require honorable members to be in the House a few minutes before the appointed time for commencement of the sitting of the House and after the health break, attendance registers will continue to be taken both at the start of each sitting and after a health break. Honorable members have been urged to desist from merely logging in and thereafter leave the House for the rest of the day's sitting. That's the announcement that was made by Madam Speaker at the start of business today. The House went on to consider one question for oral answer, understanding order number 74. This is question 300. It came from Mr. Simumba of Nakonde. Mr. Simumba did ask the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security a question in two parts, whether the government is aware that recently one person was shot dead and others robbed in Nakonde district, which has also recorded an increased crime rate involving armed robbers who are terrorizing residents. In response, the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, Honorable Mwimbu, did say that government is aware of 3 serious cases reported to the Zambia police, and one is a case of a murder, the other one is an aggravated robbery case. The B part of the question, the Member of Parliament wanted to find out what urgent measures are being taken to maintain law and order in the district. The Minister did mention quite a number of measures, among them increased border patrols and increased sensitization of crime matters to the community. Thereafter, the House went on to consider 3 questions for oral answer, understanding order number 74. Question 303 lapsed. It was supposed to come from Chinsali lawmaker, Mr. Mokosa. We did see Mr. J. Daka of Chadiza ask the Minister of Education a question in 3 parts, whether the government has any plans to construct a girls' boarding secondary school in Chadiza parliamentary constituency. And in response, the minister did say that the government has no immediate plans to construct a girls' boarding secondary school in Chadiza. And the Member of Parliament wanted to find out when the plans will be implemented. And in response, the minister did say that government is currently finishing off old projects before embarking on new ones. Of course, we did have one question for written answer Understanding Order number 75, and for this particular one, it's going to be responded in writing. We did see Mr. Andaleki, Katumbura lawmaker, move a motion that the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Legal Affairs, Human Rights and Governance on the review of the administration and operations of the judiciary in the delivery of justice in Zambia for the second session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th June 2023, and this report was seconded by Chawama Member of Parliament, Mr. Sila Lungu, and this report has since been adopted. We also had a resumption of debate on the reports of the Committee on Health, Community Development and Social Services. This report has equally been adopted. Well, that's it. That's all the business that we had for you. Remember, tomorrow being a Friday, our business starts at 09 hours. Until then, bye-bye and God bless.
of Zambezi Magic are perfectly aligned. It's a gamble for stardom on the all-new 10 Tamanga Street. Bold steps push Zuba to a league above all. Lindiwe plays puppet master as her devious plan unfolds. With the hope of reconciliation, Shimumbi returns to Ranamumbi. Witness Uncle Imbani's hustle and bustle for the upper life. And get up close and personal with our favorite superstar, Mutale Mwanza. It's a date with the stars on Zambezi Magic. Channel 162 on DSTV and Channel 3 on GoTV.
3, 2, 1.
Blast off! Buckle up and hold on tight as you blast off into a universe packed with out-of-this-world adventures. Wow! It's going to be a journey filled with fun and discovery.
Oh, he's adorable.
Explore a galaxy of great times that will leave you amazed. Search for the weird, wonderful, and all things wacky.
Welcome to the future.
Discover strange creatures, hidden powers, and unravel secrets. This is so cool. And find the superpowered strength you never knew you had. Heck yeah! So go wild. Tune in and let the thrilling adventures begin.
Let's get wild!
There's always something to love on GoTV.
You deserve an escape to paradise. Let's take you there with some of your favorite local content lined up on GoTV. GoTV. Be part of it. Live life. Mwamene ifunika kunkadila. GoTV. Niamoyo. Tamban shows yonse from as low as 35 kwacha per GoTV and feel the best of local content. GoTV. Love it.
There were 59,439 registered cashew nut farmers in Western Province.
The situation as it is,
frustrated.
The good people of Petauke, especially in Nika 1, where we don't have water.
This is now a serious risk on the people of Iteztezi. Last week, we registered one maternal death.
Within the CDF, we can build palaces for all chiefs in our country.
Minister, when are we going to have money? When are we going to construct those?
Catch us live on DSTV channel 272, OTV channel 28, Topstar channel 5, or visit the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook page. Parliament Television, bringing Parliament closer to you.
We have seen a propensity.
The debates, the questioning, the making of laws, the confrontation. The live parliamentary proceedings are aired on Parliament TV every Tuesday to Thursday at 14:30 hours and Fridays at 09 hours. Make a date. Parliament TV, bringing Parliament closer to you.
Parliament TV, bringing Parliament closer to you. In their continued tour of some fertilizer manufacturing companies, selected members of the Committee on Agriculture, Lands and Natural Resources, chairpersons and vice chairpersons of portfolio committees undertook a familiarization tour of the nitrogen chemicals of Zambia situated in Kafue district. Established in 1967, Nitrogen Chemicals of Zambia's principal activity is manufacturing and distribution of fertilizer throughout the country. The Nitrogen Chemicals of Zambia has had operational challenges. Commerce, Trade and Industry Minister Honorable Chipoka Mlenga said government is committed to revamping activities at the Nitrogen Chemicals of Zambia, NCZ.
But one thing, honorable members, I can assure you, it's a more reason why we even took this initiative to say, let us take our members. So that you even appreciate the challenges NCZ is going through. So you even appreciate the initiative now government is doing to recapitalize them. Because until last year, they never got support to say, can you participate in the FISIP and we pay you on time. Now they are able to get funding when they are paid and replace parts. Last year when we came here, it was a sorry sight. So now it is encouraging that they are even able to revive the plant. So the future is bright. Going next year, we can even go to 150,000 metric tons production of fertilizer. The other year, 200 metric tons.
Delegation leader Ms. Maureen Mawonga, who is vice chairperson of the Committee on Agriculture, Lands and Natural Resources, highlighted the objectives of the tour by the members of parliament.
As a Committee on Agriculture, Lands and Natural Resources, you know that the issues of fertilizer distribution, production, at our hearts, and also being a member of parliament from a rural constituency, and also knowing that most of the members of parliament who are seated here come from the rural constituencies, you know that agriculture and fertilizer production, distribution affects all of us. And so we are honored as a committee and my fellow members of parliament to be here today to try and see how best we can work together in the production and distribution of fertilizer for this farming season. Our objective really is very simple, most of which you have highlighted, and we're just here to appreciate how we are producing the fertilizer and how far and how ready are you for the distribution in this farming season, and most of which you have already touched. So as at now, what we are just remaining with is for us to go and see physically what you have mentioned, if at all the stocks that you are talking about, they are already there. And I'm sure that there will be other recommendations and clarifications that members of parliament would like to have, so that we know as we are going back the state at which and the readiness of this institution for the supply of fertilizer under this season.
And Nitrogen Chemicals of Zambia CEO Mr. William Wale briefed the members of parliament regarding the distribution of fertilizer to parts of the country, an exercise which has since been flagged off by NCZ.
We would like to indicate as NCZ, working with the IDC, that as we stand today, we have 10,500 metric tons of compound D fertilizer that's sitting in the eastern warehouse, in our warehouse the other side, which quantity of fertilizer you can have a look at as we do the plant tour. NCZ has been given 41 districts in Mchinga, Wapula, Copperbelt, and northwestern provinces. So the total tonnage that NCZ has been given this year is 43,292.70 metric tons, which tonnage we are going to distribute to the areas and in the areas that I've indicated to you. So our projection is to make sure that we deliver this fertilizer August, September, to make sure that all this fertilizer is delivered. Obviously, we know that in terms of redeeming, it might take a bit longer, but we'll make sure that August, September, this fertilizer is sitting in the warehouses in the different districts. We are confident that this is something that we can achieve because we have a production plan whose projection is basically to make sure that we produce between 10,000 to 12,000 metric tons in the coming months.
After the briefing, MPs were taken on a tour of the NCZ plant. It is envisioned that money accrued from FISIP will help in the rehabilitation of the plant, and Nitrogen Chemicals of Zambia's aspirations for job creation and earning the much-needed foreign exchange will in turn be realized.
Zambia.